Tapu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Gasak Ma Keperu with another video for you. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how to ask God for help. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. Also, we do have free ebooks for you. You can just scroll down below, click on the links, and download those ebooks right away. If you want to take your learning to the next level and beyond, you can become a Patreon supporter. You can do for as little as $1, $5, $20 per month. You get exclusive access to instructional videos, which goes deeper down the rabbit hole. Videos on how to meditate, self-hypnosis, how to invoke the ancestors or invoke spirits for your protection, and a lot more. So become a Patreon supporter today. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. So how all of you are, that's a backward sentence. How are you? So I want to talk a little bit about the condition in the world we live today. We all know that we are facing challenges, and some more than others. And those challenges are there, whether you realize or not, to help you to spiritually grow, to awaken the power within you. And because we've been conditioned in a Western society by Western ideology, we have an external approach to things, meaning we're always looking outside of ourselves for a solution and an answer. I'll give you just an example of this. When we go back to ancient Kemet, Egypt, way back, thousands of years, we understand that one of the first geniuses was Imhotep, who's a multi-genius. But how did Imhotep acquire the knowledge that he did? Well, he was schooled in a practice of Tahuti, meaning to intuit wisdom and knowledge. See, how were the first sages, the first teachers? Where did they acquire their knowledge at? They learned to go within to communicate and connect with source, 5D, to extrapolate from that the Akashic records and pull down the wisdom and knowledge. You understand? See, learning is not an external thing. That's a Western ideology. That's a Western concept that we've been indoctrinated into. So we go to a university and we have a professor that stands there and delivers information to auditory dissemination, which is incorrect. The way that you bring out new information, the way you change the paradigm, the way that you bring new levels of thinking is to go within, to intuit wisdom. And that's what the major learning institutions have failed to teach us. You see, everything with them is left brain, external absorbing of information through the five senses. So this is a precursor to where I'm getting to with the idea of God. We know from our ancient ancestors how to have a conversation with God, how to talk to God. You see, this society doesn't want us to understand these tools, the tools of the oracles, that God can have a conversation with us. God can impart wisdom to us. God can guide us in our lives through using these tools, the oracles, the I Ching, the Medunater, the Ifa. And if you're dealing with someone who is a diviner, they will help you and interpret the information so you can better live your life, so you can have guidance from the divine. You see, God comes with faculties. You see, God is not the person that's going to intervene in your life directly, because God has bigger things to worry about. See, when God created all that there is, God came in the form of Ra, and Ra gave us his daughter Ma'at, which is order. And from Ma'at, we then know that all the other deities came into being. And these deities are the managers and administrators of the universe, of all that there is. And that if we want something, and if we desire something, it's not God that we go directly to, but we go to these administrators, these celestial administrators. And they will help us if we go to them in the right way. You see, when you are having a conversation with God, you are not having conversation with the Almighty per se, yes, but you are having a conversation with God's wisdom faculty, Tahuti. When you are trying to get power to do something, you are communicating with God's power, Sekert. I want you to understand that. When you're trying to live truth and invoke the law, you're dealing with God's love and God's justice and God's balance. That's ma'at. So I want you to understand, I see the Christians and their campaigns have done a great brainwashing of the world, of the planet. Not only just to make you believe in an external God, and I can get into that, but they want you to think that when you need something, you've got to bow and fear and beg this being, God. God doesn't want you to fear him, her. God doesn't want you to necessarily bow and say, oh, Lord, this, that, and this. See, we in ancient Kemet knew that there were conditions that had to be met for you to be granted that which you wish. When you go to the oracles and you're looking for guidance from God, who's giving you that information? It is you, you see, because you are God. In the story of Osir and Aset, Osir is buried deep within you. That is a symbol of the subconscious mind. And you must bring Osir up, resurrect Osir for you to be the living likeness of God on earth. Meaning you must awaken your powers. You must transcend your emotionalism, and then you will have God's wisdom and God's power. The thing that we are incorrectly doing in this space-time continuum is that we have the belief that God is an outside entity. God is one with us. God is within us. God places consciousness within us to experience this fourth dimensional realm. You are God, and you must acknowledge that. You brought yourself into being. You created all that there is so that you may have an experience and gain from that knowledge. And now when you need something from God, yes, you may pray, you may beg, you may kneel down, hold your hands together and ask God for something. But in Kemet, we looked at this in terms of a scientific way. We knew that because we are God, we are Osir within us, waiting to arise, that if there were certain conditions that we brought ourselves into vibrationally, then our desires, our wants would be granted. There's no begging, there's no fearing of God, there's no obedience, or else you'll get fire and brimstone. There's none of that. It is a power available to all, good and bad. Now we're talking about the lower half of the tree of life. And if you don't, or if you're not schooled in the tree of life, I recommend you look at some of my other videos. But we're looking at Oset, Sebek, and Hedaru. You see, yes, you can pray, beg God, and if you are sincere to where that want and desire penetrates the subconscious mind, goes from the left brain to the right brain and goes deep into your subconscious mind and moves from 4D to 5D, because 5D is where all is one. And if you're able to get into that vibrational frequency of 5D, then what you want will come to fruition. It's a formula. It's simple as that. But the Christians and their crusade want you to believe that it was granted by an outside proxy, an outside savior, or it was granted by the Almighty. Because the Christians don't want you to understand that there is a formula and that your identification must be that of God. You must identify with the God within you. You're going through things in a roundabout way, using a proxy, looking at something that's outside of you, when all you have to do is meet the conditions within. I go into a trance state, I visualize, I have a passionate emotion for what I want. And if I go deep enough, and if I'm sincere, and if I'm passionate enough, I will transition from 4D to 5D, and what I want will materialize. Because we're dealing with a multiverse. And in one multiverse, what you want already exists. You're just vibrationally shifting to that universe to where you can interact with the thing that you want. Because when God created the universe and all that there is, what we call reality, he created it with abundance. You can't add or subtract from it. It is complete. So if you get into the mindset that what you want already exists in another space-time continuum, and all you have to do is meet certain conditions within yourself, and that you are God, and that you can vibrationally shift to interact with that thing, given time and space within this fourth dimensional plane, 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, it will appear. But if you forever are you see, the Christians give you all of these prerequisites, these weird prerequisites. Oh, you've got to fear God. You got to love God. You got to get on your knees. You got to beg God. You got to pray. You got to do good to all people. You got to love Christ. You got to be born again. They create all of these prerequisites that are very difficult to meet. And that plays a mind game on you because you think you're not worthy. You think you're not good enough. But when you adapt the idea that you are God and you are divine by nature, and that you have the power of God, not in quantity, but in quality, then you know that you can perform your own miracles given the right circumstances and conditions. You don't have to fear God. You don't have to beg God. Now, I'm not saying that if you repeatedly are praying and praying and praying, that won't work. It will work, because the more you pray, as the Buddhists, they pray and they count the beads on their necks. And the more you pray, it's a repetition that puts the left brain to sleep and then guides you into the right brain deep enough to get into the 5D, fifth density. And then what you want will materialize. It's the same formula, but you're just going about it in a roundabout way. I'm trying to give you a direct route to it. You see, this is a power that Ra, God, created when God gave birth to Ma'at, order. God created the formula. She created the conditions and the power to be accessible to everyone, and not anointed people, not prophets, not special people. We all have access to this power. Again, go into trance with an idea, the belief, with a visualization, passion, emotion. Hold on to that as long as possible, and what you want will come to fruition. If you go deep enough, you transition from 4D to 5D. 5D is where all things are one and all things are connected. In the fifth dimension, the minute you think of something, it appears. There's no time delay. There's no time dilation is the proper word. It is immediate. In the fourth density, 4D, we're dealing with space and time. Therefore, when you think of something, it takes time to manifest. There is time dilation. But the Christians will have you believe that there's no formula to it, is that God gives people things such as the preachers, the pimp pastor preachers who have the mega churches because they're special. No, they just know how to manipulate people economically. That's all they do. God has not granted them anything special. See, the thing that you've gotten caught up in, and what does you in at the before you can even start, is the idea of lack. When you Start thinking about, I need this, I want this, I don't have this, I must have this. Then that creates conditions for your power not to work. But when you start to understand that you're living in a multiverse and there's a version of you that already has the thing that you want, and you understand that everything is in abundance, that you just merely have to vibrationally shift to that parallel world to get that thing, then that changes the dynamics. And when you are in this condition of where you are meditating, you're in the alternate state of consciousness, and you're visualizing something, you must visualize it as in the present tense, as if you already have it, because that sets the emotion, the frequency up to bring it to you. Because this matrix, this universe, whatever you call it, is a genie. It grants you your request. It's only a reflection of who you are. It mirrors back to you your belief system, your frequency. You cannot interact with something you're not on the vibrational frequency of. And part of being a God is to understand that you have to be accountable for things that happen in your life, good or bad. Because in some way, vibrationally, you attract that. Now, Kasank, are you saying that I've attracted this world now that has gone haywire in 2020? No, I'm not saying that. That's a bigger thing that you agreed to in your soul contract to experience with other people as well. There's the subjective and the objective. Yes, you're having a subjective experience, but there's also an objective experience that you've agreed to partake in. And remember, no matter what's going on, you have the ability to transcend them because God gave you Amen, a peace that nothing can disturb, to where you can withdraw consciousness within and experience nirvana in the face of the greatest obstructions, in the face of the greatest pain. You see what I'm touching on? You see these powers that the Christian religion and the Islamic religion and the Judaism and Catholicism doesn't want you to understand? Number one, the ability to communicate with God through the oracles and have God speak back to you. Number two, the ability to ask God, you, I am you, for a request and have it granted if the right conditions are met. And I've just given you the formula. Three, the ability to be at peace in the face of the greatest obstructions. Do you see how beautiful that Trinity is? And there's another one. There's another one. What did I say? What did I say? Communicate with God, have your wishes granted, the ability to be at peace in the face of the greatest obstructions, and number one, to access God's power. You understand? That's sacred. So I want you to keep this in mind. And it's not a trivial thing. And it's unfortunate that most of us, by default, will get down and pray and ask God for something. And in a way, not to cast any aspersions on that, but in a way, that's a betrayal of who you are. Praying to an outside entity. Turn within. Get into a habit of referring to yourself as God and understanding who you really are. Stop identifying with the person, the physical body. That is not who you are. You are a consciousness. You will live forever. Start accepting your birthright as God. and understand that God has put everything in place, the celestial organizers and the celestial managers, to help you and assist you along the way. God doesn't directly intervene in your life. God's got too much other stuff to worry about. God's got multi universes, multi dimensions that God is managing. You begging God, God's go, look, I get God is like, she's like, I gave you power. You keep asking me for help, and I gave you all the power. You have the power. You are Neo. Why you keep asking me for help? Because you've been conditioned by this Judeo-Christian society to think that you're helpless, you're impotent. That's a lie. They've lied to you. See, the ruling elite has conquered the planet. They have conquered the planet. They have moved us from integrated brain thinking and trapped us into left brain thinking to all we can think of is there's external this, external that, concrete this, concrete that. They don't want to deal with metaphysics. You see, the ruling elite had to do this. Do you understand? They had to do this. This is in their plan. They had to trap us in left brain thinking so they can create the idea of race, factions, divide and conquer. That's how they got us. That's how they got us. Because when the planet was dominated by integrated brain thinking, people walked around saying, I am consciousness. I am not the person. I am not the physical being. I am God. And I manifest things. We were gods back then. We understood the secrets of the universe. Every day I wake up, and if I don't have something I need, I say to myself, Kisank, are you going to meditate and focus on manifesting that? And I catch myself too sometimes. Sometimes I'll have a conversation with God and I'm like, God, this ruling elite, they're pretty evil, What's their plan? And I'm like, I'm talking to myself because I am God, Let me go to the oracle and get the answer to that question. That's the prerequisite. You must understand who you are. When you do that, if we were able to get the planet in the one accord to say, we are gods, the ruling elite would disappear tomorrow because we would vibrationally shift to a parallel reality where they didn't exist. That simple thing of I am God, I am the Tear, I am source, changes the game. Do you understand? That simple shift of thinking changes you vibrationally to the point of where you can now access your power. And the Christians have done a great mind job because now they come with God punishes you. God's not going to punish you. Let's get that straight. God does not punish you. You see, Ma'at, she is so beautiful and she is so wonderful that you know what Ma'at does? If you do wrong, you know what Ma'at does? All Ma'at wants to do is bring you back into balance. That is it. Ma'at doesn't want to punish you. Ma'at says, you're out of balance. Let's find out how we bring you back into balance. That's why God loves. Oh, but the Christians say God will punish you. You'll go to hell, which is a primitive concept that only was created for children, maybe. There's no hell. So I want you to all start thinking like gods. and wake up and say, what will I manifest today? What is it that I need? And I know it's difficult because your default reaction is to ask God, talk to God, pray to God. That's okay. But try when you wake up and say, what am I going to manifest today? And meditate and visualize it and embed it with emotion and passion and bring it to fruition on your own so that you can take charge of your life and realize that God has empowered you. But God is always there, though. God will always listen to you. And we know we curse God when God doesn't give us the things that we want. We be cursing God and we be upset at her, but she still loves us. You can say, God, I'll never talk to you again. I hate you. God will forgive you and God will still love you. That's how great God is. But again, these words betray who we truly are because we are God. God is within us. We can feel God. So if we can make that shift to creating the conditions within our temples, our bodies, to manifest whatever it is we desire, we have that ability. Did you know you have that ability? There's nothing too great that you cannot manifest. You can manifest anything you want as long as you create the right conditions within the body, the temple to do so. When I don't have enough power, I get me some magical powders, some crystals, some candles, some magical incense to power up. But I know that eventually within this space-time continuum, if I focus on what I want for long enough, it will come to fruition. As long as I meet those conditions. Think about that. Think about how powerful you are. Now I can throw in some mantras that will help me to get to the right frequency, the vibrational frequency, even better. But if I just sit there and I'm praying and begging and fearing God and trying to be obedient and praising Christ and all that, that was imposed upon us. That was never our traditional way of life. That is never based on science. That's based on fear, subjugation, belief in external things that don't connect with you. When people do the DMT and ayahuasca experience, they say, I connected with source. I came out with a profound experience to where the ego was nullified and I experienced source and it took me out of my depression. It saved me. I became one with humanity. That is what the ruling elite doesn't want. That's why things like DMT and ayahuasca and meditations are so hated by religions and science because they destroy the ego, which separates us from one another. Because when you have those experiences, you connect in 5D to every living thing on the planet. And you feel a profound sense of oneness. Because that is what Osir is. Osir is a great uniter. But you must be devoted like Isis or Set, devotion to bringing that part of you to the forefront, connecting with source within, feeling joy, feeling passion for that which you desire, and living truth. not the truth that has been given to us by the King James Version of the Bible, a pedophile King James, but the truth that comes down to us from our ancestors of antiquity, who base their existence in science, who walked the earth as gods and magicians and priests and priestesses and shaman and shaw women. This is our legacy, and you need to please pass this on to your children. Do not indoctrinate them into this Western concept of religion, this perverted idea of religion, a holy trinity that has all males. Our holy trinity is Osar, Aset, the goddess, and Heru. Please do not indoctrinate them into a religion that has all males. All religions have powerful female deities. Ma'at, Aset, Sekert, Nut, Geb, all of them. Oser, Ra, men and women side by side, balance. Their religion knows nothing about holistic thinking. Their religion knows nothing about balance of yin and yang. How dare you disrespect the female principle by saying God is a male? Ancient Kemet never, ever conceived of a religion like that. We had a cosmological perspective. We understood Ma'at, balance, male, female, yin, yang, positive, negative. And in that balance, we never looked at someone else as our enemy. We always looked at things as a complementary element. We understood that everything was one. There was nothing that diametrically opposed you, only things that brought out your spiritual power. This is what a Ser is all about, uniting. That's why it was Tahuti, his greatest feat was making the two combatant brothers go home in peace, bringing back balance, righting the wrong. That religion, that Western religion, doesn't teach you to respect opposites. It doesn't teach you balance. It doesn't teach you to understand the female principle, the divine female principle. It doesn't teach you that. Because the divine female principle is a subconscious mind. Do you understand? The divine female principle is an analogy for the subconscious mind. So when you focus on the conscious mind, the male principle, all you focus on is concrete thinking. So of course they're going to say, verbally ask God for something, pray to God for something, but they will never tell you to go into trance, alternate state of consciousness, to go deep within, to connect with 5D. That's the female principle that they're afraid of. And they're always going to tell you that don't do meditation or trance. You know, they set it up to make you fear that. That's the female principle again. Aset is known as trance state, alternate state of consciousness. She's also associated with the moon, subconscious mind. The sun is the waking state, the conscious mind, the male principle. This is why the Roman Emperor Constantine in 325 AD said we've got to change this Kemetic religion. We've got to stop this integrated brain thinking and now focus on the sun, the waking state, the left brain solely. We've got to trap the planet into the left brain thinking, the sun, and forget about the moon. So the world became encapsulated in verbal discourse, reading of psalms and verses, but not penetrating the depths of what the symbolism means, the analogies, the metaphors that only the right brain could interpret and understand. This is why, going back to Imhotep, he was a multi-genius because he was an integrated brain thinker. He was able to go into a trance state and connect with the Akashic records and connect with source and bring down wisdom and knowledge. This is why the Christian religions won't teach you how to ask God for help. They only teach you how to just verbally plead with God, but they don't teach you how to get yourself in the correct state to where you are the master of the universe. You are God. You are Neter. See, you are Neter, and God is Nebuchadnezzar, Lord of all. God is the great ancestor. That's what we called God in antiquity, the great ancestor. So begin that shift. Begin that shift now in your thinking and watch your world change. Start to embrace the idea that you are God and you have the power of God, not in quantity, but in quality, because God is immense. God is all that there is. In fact, we're not set up brain-wise to comprehend the vastness and the immenseness of God. It's too much for us to comprehend. God goes beyond our comprehension in this physical domain. To really comprehend God, we may need to get into 5D, oneness. Then we can truly comprehend God, but we're trapped in the ego, the physical body right now. This is why you cannot imagine infinity. It's too difficult of a concept for you right now. So keep this in mind. It is part of your culture, part of your legacy. Pass this on. This is why we need to practice our traditional spiritual systems, not because it's cool and trendy, because it's based on science, because it's right. Because somewhere along the line, as I mentioned, in the space-time continuum, the ruling elite took over. And they brainwashed the planet. You see, the ruling elite are black hat magicians. They're schooled in the occult. And they knew how to upload viruses and ergobores and pendulums into the collective consciousness of humanity. And then they went on their campaign after they uploaded the viruses to destroy all the great libraries of antiquity, to hide the knowledge of who we are. And they brainwashed us to where we don't even remember our own history of who we are, of how we walk this earth. And now we all fall victim to their whims. They create these things and these schemes and these false flags and all these things, and we just fall victim to it because we don't know how to go into ourselves and intuit wisdom and knowledge to understand what's true and what's not true. We don't know how to connect to our third eye. We live in lack because we don't know how to manifest things of our own power. We have cut ourselves off from our power, our source. But the truth is, it's so easy to reconnect. It's so easy to reconnect. And I want you to understand this before I go. You see, we're living in troubled times right now. The ruling elite, they've enacted their plan. They're moving full steam ahead with their plan, their sinister plan. But God knows what they're doing. You understand? And God and the deities and beings are ready to assist us. They're ready to come to our aid, but only on the condition that we recognize who we are, we understand our culture, and we understand the reality that we exist in. And that reality is that you manifest it. If we collectively decide that we're sick of the ruling elite, then they're gone. But we must come to a consensus. We must work together to change a vibrational thought process. I'm not talking about a physical revolution. We don't have to do that. All we have to do is change the thinking of the planet to embrace who we are as gods, to understand that we have the power. And the gods, the angels, the beings that are out there will jump in and assist us. But we must tap into them. And to tap into them, we must tap into our God state within. In the occult community, talk about the Christ consciousness. That's a level of 5D. We have to get into that. That's who we were. That's who we were in antiquity. We were 5D people. We knew who we were, and we practiced it on a daily basis. But we have forgotten that. We have become disconnected from that. And we have allowed those who are sinister magicians to pull the wool over our eyes, to deceive us and confuse us with their technology, with their backwards belief systems, with their Orwellian tactics. This is a battle of the mind. It's not a physical confrontation. Their goal is to so program and condition you that you will be a willing participant in your own enslavement. You will fight to become a slave. You will lust to become a slave. You will walk and dance to the slaughterhouse. That's their goal. You cannot do that to a planet of gods, but you can do it to a planet of men and women. So your salvation will not be in an outside savior, a proxy, a Christ, a Jesus, a Muhammad. Your salvation will be recognizing who you truly are. I am God. And you must say that every day and recognize it and believe it to the core of your being and practice your power. Set an intention every day to manifest something in your life. Practice your power and see it unfold before you, and then you'll believe and have faith. Our ancestors were not wrong. They had it right. They built a magnificent empire that even today scientists still cannot explain. Do you understand? I don't think you heard me. Our ancestors built a magnificent empire to where science still cannot explain it today. The only way science can explain it is to say aliens built it or aliens helped them, because science doesn't understand integrated brain thinking. It doesn't. They're so polarized in left brain thinking. They don't understand what the world looks like when whole brain thinkers take over. See, when whole brain thinkers take over, you have an advanced civilization. You have a civilization based on morality, ma'at. You have a civilization that doesn't corrupt and pollute the planet because it thinks holistically. It doesn't look at things as your enemy. It doesn't come up with plots and schemes. It doesn't look to create division and conquest and wars. Whole brain thinking makes sure that everything is in harmony, holistically. So that's what's going to have to happen. People say, well, how can we end racism? We end racism by moving to left brain thinking to whole brain thinking. That's the only way you can end it. You can't end it through laws, legislation. That doesn't change the heart of people. That's just outside coercion. You have to change it by vibrationally shifting the thought process of the planet. And we understand, according to the tipping point, that when a few change, it spreads like a virus because we're all psychically connected to the collective consciousness. I'm going to say it again. When just enough of us shift, it will spread like a virus. And it will infect others to do the right thing and to live ma'at. That's how it works. Do you understand what I'm saying? You see, the way the ruling elite took over was they did not change every person on the planet's thinking. They knew they had to get to the tipping point, which is probably around 12% of the population. They knew they had to just affect just 12% of the population, and then the thought process would spread like a virus. And people would download that left brain thinking. Now we can reverse that by infecting 12% of the population with integrated whole brain thinking to bring us back to where we were before, back into balance. To bring back the Christ consciousness, to bring back and resurrect Osir. A shift of the mind. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. This is Kasak Ma Keperu, son of Ma and Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, Amen Ra.